Today I'm going to show you how to make your swatch stick. That's these little guys right here. They show you your color of your dip without having to open the container every time. And plus the powder in the container always looks a little bit different than when it's actually completed on a nail or a swatch stick. So all you need is your base, activator and top coat, your swatch stick, your dip color, and a brush. So to start, you just open up your dip color. I haven't used this one yet, so I've got to get the lid off. Always keep that little piece of plastic from inside your dip jar because it helps the dip from spilling out when the lid's on. So you're going to start with your base coat. I happen to be using the Rossi brand, mainly because I don't like using them for my regular nails when I'm actually doing them because the smell's a little bit strong for me and it really takes a little bit longer to dry, and I like to go kind of quick when I do my nails. So all you do is paint a layer of your base, dip into the jar. I like to do face down because it makes it a little bit smoother of a finish. And I dip it just a couple times because, especially with this brand, it takes a little bit longer to dry. Knock the excess off. I'm just getting the extra powder off of the back of the stick while I'm letting the front of the stick kind of dry. Sorry for the drinking noise in the background. That's my dog. Her name is Bella. So hopefully this one should be dry by now. You just use your brush. Brush off any of the excess powder. I brush it right back into the jar because it saves you some powder. I really like to brush any of the excess off. I'm a little bit maybe anal retentive about this because I don't like to get my brushes dirty, the liquid brushes. So next, you just do the exact same thing. You do another layer of your base. And you dip it right into the powder. And again, I do it a couple of times. I just knock off some of the excess. And while the front's drying, I brush the extra powder off the back. So I'm just brushing the extra powder off the front. And then I do 3 layers of dip on every swatch I make. And the reason for that is if I know every single one is 3 layers of dip, I know how opaque or translucent it is with 3 layers. So when I'm going to put it on my nail, it really helps me know how many I want to put on my nails. So there, I've got the base on there. Just dip it in the powder again. Knock off the extra. So this is my 3rd layer. I'm going to brush off the back side. Brushing off the front side. And you'll see, hopefully this focuses well enough, that it's a really smooth finish. I personally do not file or buff down my swatches just because that's time and using up supplies like my files that I don't really feel like I need to. So I'm done with my base. I'm gonna close that up and put it out of the way. I'm gonna put my lid back on the dip, get it out of the way. Get this to focus down here again. So next I'm just gonna use my activator. I just paint one layer of activator all over the swatch. And I let it dry. I typically like to give the activator 2 minutes to dry, just because if you do it too quickly, you do your top coat too quickly after using the activator, it kind of makes your brush get hard, and that's not ideal. You don't need your brush anymore, so I'll get that out of the way. So you can see through the back, you can see the color just fine because I use clear ones. Some people like to not put a top coat on so they can see kind of what it looks like glossy through the back side here and matte on the front side without any top coat. I don't feel like it really shows you what it looks like very well glossy this way, so that's not my preferred way. So I do put a top coat on mine. So then I always wipe just to make sure if there's any excess activator. I don't want to get my brushes hard or contaminate them. So I'm just going to open up my top coat. First layer. This is really similar to how you do your nails. Obviously, you have to be a little bit neater when you're doing your nails. I always brush off my brush before I put it back in the jar. Then I just give this 30 to 60 seconds to kind of soak in, which you'll notice the first layer always soaks into the dip a little bit and dries not super shiny. So I give it the opportunity to do what it needs to do and get a little bit tacky so that when you put your final layer on, you're not brushing over top of a wet layer of the top coat. I don't know if you can see, but it's kind of soaking in, and you can still see some of the texture of the dip itself since I didn't file it. So I'm going to do my final layer of top coat. And see how my brush is still nice and soft? It stays that way if you brush it off every time, and you only really have to do that with your top coat. But I like to because it really does keep the integrity of your brush. So now you'll see this has a really nice gloss to it. It's pretty smooth. There's a couple little bumps, but that's just because I didn't file. But that's really all it takes to make your swatches.